Hey everyone, today I just want to talk about which characters I think would support Ice in the DC universe. First up, I'm gonna be giving him a little less credit in this video than in the Gaza one. I think he'd be far more apolitical or ignorant about what's happening with the Ice situation compared to an international conflict. Because for the Green Lanterns, it's all about scale ultimately, because they're like the what do you call it, intergalactic space police. But I think he'd be trying his best on a diplomatic level, or he'd be apolitical if we're looking at, the older Green Lantern before stuff like his journey with Green Arrow softened him up, or the exposure to the corruption to the Guardians of Oa and whatnot. Either way, Batman, um, whether it's injustice or the Soviet Union, he becomes a revolutionary when it's needed. And I know we're talking about regular versions of these characters, despite me using the injustice images. But yeah, we are gonna borrow from the what ifs in order to help understand what these characters would do in this unique what if. Aquaman, definitely in diplomacy. Bane, I don't think he'd care. He'd probably be happy because it's the decline of a country he doesn't like, I guess. Black Adam, I don't think he'd care because it's not his people. Catwoman, I can see her being in sabotage. Same with Cyborg. Green Arrow would definitely be in the revolution. Actually, one might argue Guillotine team because if you, at least based on the TV show, he's very different in the comics though. He doesn't mind killing people. Harley Quinn, I'd say sabotage. These are very similar to the other one because what's happening in Gaza, what's happening with ICE, they're very closely interlinked, and there are differences though that we are seeing based on which characters would be involved and which wouldn't care. Superman 100% would be a part of a revolution, at least protecting innocents on the streets. He would not kill. This is not the injustice world we're talking about. Wonder Woman would also be on the revolution, although if we're looking at 90s Wonder Woman, like the time she killed Maxwell Lord, honestly, yeah, we got AI Big Brother now, so, you know, that story came real. We got the Joker, he'd be apolitical. I don't think he'd care. He'd probably just. He wouldn't think twice about it. Chaos is his domain, he'd thrive. Ares would be fueling it, Deathstroke would definitely work for the government and join ICE. Doomsday, he wouldn't be aware. If he got used, the government would use him. He would not be willingly. He doesn't have the concept of immigration and such, you know? Um, I think Hawkgirl would be in the revolution, perhaps sabotage because she's not as invested, but she is herself an immigrant. She's also been reincarnated a couple of times, wild stuff. Killer Frost, I can see her in sabotage. Most of these characters are American citizens, and even if they are villains, they tend to have a moral alignment towards the good guys, mostly the rogue gallery, so yeah. Nightwing would definitely be protecting innocents on the streets. Shazam, I think he'd try to join the revolution, but because he's a child, he might not be allowed to, and he would end up being someone who's protecting people in the streets. Sinestro would definitely be siding with ICE because fear is power for him. Solomon Grundy, maybe Amanda Waller deploys him, but I don't see him being directly involved otherwise. Lex Luthor, again, depends if it's good guy Lex Luthor or bad guy Lex Luthor. I'm gonna go ahead and put him on the Guillotine team because if it's good guy Lex Luthor, he's still got a dark side to him in the sense he often argues with Superman about what the right thing to do is, even if they agree that they should do the right thing. You see the problem there. Raven, I think she would be MIA, but if she was here, she'd be protecting protesters and innocent people in the streets. Batgirl, 100% protecting people. Lobo, I think he'd be unaware, but if he had to get involved, I do think he'd be a stooge for the government. He would join ICE. Anyway, we got Martian Manhunter, and he he would definitely be in the revolution, although I can see him choosing to be part of the sabotage team. Um, Scorpion would not be involved. We're gonna ignore the DLC characters, my bad. Zatanna is not gonna get ignored. I think she'd be in sabotage, but I can see her in the revolution as well, to be honest. Um, I'm gonna put her in sabotage though. Atrocitus, he would definitely be part of the guillotine team. Just because he gets to funnel his rage in an appropriate manner, I suppose. I don't know. He would most likely be unaware and missing from the conflict though. So, Black Canary, she would definitely be on the revolution. Um, One can argue that she might be in protecting the innocents on the streets or sabotage. But to be fair, I think it would be an all out revolution in this case. Blue Beetle, I do think he'd be in sabotage. Same with, well, that's not Cyborg, that's Brainiac, my bad. Brainiac would be unaware. Captain Cold, he's a good guy at his heart. He'd be protecting people even if he was not exactly enthusiastic to do so. Dr. Fate, unless it's something that changes the fate of the universe, I think he'd just be trying a diplomatic angle, or he wouldn't even be around, he'd probably be doing his own thing. Firestorm, definitely revolution. He could be in sabotage, but there's not as much to sabotage in this context than there would be in the other conflicts that I discussed. Gorilla Grodd, I think he represents like the king of the incels to me as a metaphor in a way. I would definitely see him siding with the bad guys in this case because he doesn't care for humans. I know he's got somewhat of a heart. I've read some of the Flash comics with him in it. I still think most depictions of him would be siding against the innocent people. Pamela Isley, she'd be alongside Harley Quinn, and she would definitely be in Sabotage. Hell, actually, she'd be in the Revolution. Um, Robin, I know the Image is a different character than most of the Robins we've had, but I'd say Robin would be protecting innocents in the streets. I would include the Bat family with Batman in Revolution, but I'd like to believe that Batman would know better than to drag these younger people into a revolution. You know, this is something a burden the older generations would have to carry. Swamp Thing would, I think he'd be on the guillotine team because he needs to put a stop to the destruction of the environment. So it's not completely ice related, but he would end up aligning with these guys in motive. The Flash, I think revolution is appropriate. Although, would you guys believe that saving innocent people on the streets from being murdered is more akin to sabotage? Cheetah, again, I'm not too familiar with her, but I could see her being apolitical or perhaps even joining ICE. But I'm gonna go ahead with apolitical. Deathstroke, he would join ICE just because it gives him government immunity, salary, and a license to kill. And same thing goes with Scarecrow, he'd just love to intimidate people and test out his chemical weapons, you know, Foucault's boomerang. Supergirl, I think unlike Superman, she'd be on the guillotine team, not the revolution, although she would definitely align herself with the values of the revolution. Um, the Atom, I could see him being in sabotage. Yeah. Black Manta, I don't know if he'd care. That's the thing. I just don't know how much he cares about the surface world because he's so obsessed with Aquaman and the whole legacy surrounding his father. Hellboy, well, he's a DLC character, so these guys go there. Red Hood would definitely be on the guillotine team. Starfire, I'm gonna put her on the revolution for now. Please do let me know if you would disagree on that. Darkseid, he would not be here. Um, and she also, I can see like Task Force X forcing her to do dirty work. The TMNT would fit right in the DC universe and they would 100% protect innocent people. And Sub Zero, buddy, you are not in the DC universe. So, yeah, that's kind of my interpretation of what characters would do what if the ICE agency did what they are doing in the real world in the DC universe. These are all speculations, these are writing exercises, me stretching my creativity and showcasing my understanding of these characters, whether it's Marvel or DC. I would love to know what you guys think, whatever you disagree with. This is about having a discussion. And yeah, I look forward to you guys' comments.